7 years ago, this was me. Cold and hollow, sitting on my bathroom floor, fresh holes punched through the wall, fresh bruises beginning to welt. Listening to the echoes of my month-old baby girl crying through the emptiness, and beyond that, listening to the sounds of my attacker attempt to smooth our daughter back to sleep. Before I go any further, I want to make one thing really clear. I'm not here tonight to talk to you about battered women. I'm here tonight because each and every one of us has a challenge before us in our lives that we struggle to overcome. And this was my challenge. And I want to invite you into my story. I think it's important that we know that even strong, capable, and confident women can end up in this position. And it's these types of situations when you realize with absolute clarity what it is that you want most in your life. I'm not talking about the material things that we go to first in our thoughts, because I can say at this moment, I didn't care how large my house was, or my paycheck was, or my waistline was. But I knew with clarity that what I needed and wanted the values in my life to resonate were calm, security, safety. I knew that I needed to feel valued and worthy in my life. And I could say with confidence that I wasn't experiencing anything right there that looked anything like that. At that moment, my life was complete and total chaos. I lived in a state of constant fear. And I was being bombarded with images that I was not good enough. I would love to be able to stand here and say that this moment was a turning point in my life, and that I got up off the floor and I changed it. But it wasn't. Because unfortunately, sometimes the hardest thing in life is realizing and deciding for yourself when to walk away and when to try harder. And what that really means is defining for yourself what your bottom line is and what your rock bottom is. And for me, that wasn't time to be rock bottom yet. And I know, because I've been there, that you cannot judge somebody else's time to hit rock bottom. I titled this To Descend the Mountain because I consider this challenge one of the largest mountains that I have ever personally climbed. And anybody who has climbed mountains, we're going to hear a little bit more about that later tonight, will know if you look at Everest, you start at base camp, you climb to base camp 1, you come back down. You climb to base camp 2, and you come back down. And climbing our own mountains is a little bit like that, isn't it? You take one step forward, and then you take one step back. And as I said before, the strongest and most capable of us need to forge our own path up that mountain and define for ourselves what that summit needs to look like. And you cannot decide for somebody what and when that happens. Several months later, I was skiing with my sister. And it was just one of those perfect, gorgeous days. We had an absolutely wonderful time. It was near the end of the day, and we were coming down to the chairlift. And she's in the audience. I can see her laughing already, because it really was just one of those comedy of errors. She thought I was going. I didn't know she was going. She started to go. The chairlift hit her. There's skis in the air. They had to stop the whole thing. She's dragged down into a ditch. And these lovely Australian ski attendants come traipsing over to her and lift her out of the ditch and gently put her back and tuck her little bum under the ski chair. And I'm laughing hysterically, but too embarrassed to admit I know her. Because like good sisters, that's what you do. And so I let her go up, red-faced by herself. And I go and I get on the next chairlift. And as I'm riding up that chairlift, still sort of, chuckling from it, I'm taking a deep breath of that cool, crisp mountain air. And I'm listening to that whirl of the chairlift go by, looking down at the pristine snow below me and all the trees capped with snow still. And I thought to myself, this is a moment of pure joy. And that is when I hit rock bottom. The very next thought that entered my mind was, you need to leave him. And when you have those realizations in time of joy that you would have in time of anger, they become very hard to ignore. At least they were for me. And a huge part of what went through my mind on the rest of that chairlift up, and let me tell you, my sister can tell you afterwards, by the time I got there, she was dumbfounded by all these realizations I'd had. But what I realized was that, you know what? I am a strong woman. I'm pretty freaking capable, and I've accomplished a lot in my life. And I'm going to raise my daughter to be exactly the same. But if I can be here, then so can she. And I know at that point, I didn't think that I was worth it, but I absolutely knew that she was. Your children will become what you are, so be what you want them to be. And for me, this also meant that she would be prone to the types of relationships that I had in my life. And it didn't matter if I raised her to be strong, and if I taught her to believe in herself. If I was modeling for her that it was okay to accept this, then she could be there too. And I wasn't okay with that. So I forged my path, and I climbed my mountain, and I summited it with confidence, and I left him. And it was everything you think it's going to be. It was awesome. I celebrated, bought myself new furniture. I decked out a whole chick pad. It was awesome. I was full of power and full of confidence, and I felt like myself again. And a lot of great things started to happen right after that. I met my husband, Gort. We got married when Alice was 3.5, and he is the kindest, generous, light-hearted person. He brings humor into our lives constantly. He sees Alice as his very own child, would never see it as anything else, and is an amazing father figure to her. I'm so grateful for him every day. They have a great relationship. This is the happy, fuzzy, golden things that happened in the years after. It wasn't the only thing that happened. There was a lot of dark things too. First thing, we went to court, lawyers, judges, a lot of people deciding for you, judging how good of a parent are you, how worthy are you, give me empirical evidence about that. Mediators, sitting over every conversation that you have together, paperwork and bills piling up beyond measure. You're either fighting constantly or not talking to each other at all. Then the threatening phone calls started. He started leaving death threats against my fiance at the time and myself, to the point where we called the police out of fear for our safety. And their answer was, we should probably call the Department of Child Services because you have a toxic relationship with him, and maybe that means you're not a good mother. Which quickly led to anxiety and depression, medication, more therapy for myself so that I could find out, how do I possibly take control of my life back? Which led to therapy for Alice. Because as much as we tried to provide a stable and loving and nurturing environment for her, she was going and getting all kinds of mixed messages from everywhere in every household. The therapist said, she's compartmentalizing, she's deteriorating, we want to help her with this, but she's not handling it well. And we could tell because her behavior escalated. She had temper tantrums every time she had to transition between homes. She wouldn't talk about the other parents to ourselves, what was going on. And then eventually she started preschool and kindergarten, and the teachers had concerns. She's not picking up, she's not learning, she's not engaging. And amid all of this chaos, after 4 years of it, I eventually found myself here, sitting in traffic on the way home from work. I had an 1.5 hour long commute, one way, on the Deerfoot, as I'm sure many of you have as well. Sitting in traffic, thinking to myself, how did I get in this place of chaos, constant fear that this family unit that I have built and that I have idealized is going to be ripped away from me? Constantly having to prove my worth as a spouse and a mother and a worker and everything else to all of these people with empirical evidence that just seems impossible to quantify. And that's when I hit rock bottom again. Because all of those feelings that I was feeling, all of that anxiety that I had, were exactly the same things that I identified that I didn't want into my life back there on that bathroom floor. So had I summited my mountain? Absolutely. Had I forged a new path down the other side? Not yet. And so that was the moment that I decided that I was going to change the story. Because I hadn't yet changed it for Alice, and obviously not yet for myself. So I drove home, determined that it was going to be different. And you know what it was? But I had to come to two conclusions before it could be. And both of them surrounded by the fact that I had to be willing to let go of the life I had planned in order to have the life that I truly wanted. Because I had this ideal little family with myself and my husband, our dog, and our picket fence. And so the first realization that I had to come to was that I did not want to be labeled as a victim or a battered woman any longer. And if I didn't want that label, then I had to let go of his label as a victor and as an abuser as well, because you can't have it both ways. And if I wanted to change that story, and if I didn't see myself that way anymore, then there's a possibility that his story is different too. The other realization that I had to make very clear for myself was that the values I wanted in my life were calm, safety, security, to be valued and to feel worthy. And that those values were more important than how they were made up. So it's been about 2 years since I came to that realization and since I decided to descend my mountain. And I want to show you a little bit about what it looks like now. Oh my gosh. This is my daughter, Alice, on her first day of grade 1 with her dads. Yeah. And you can see she's super proud of herself. And I am very proud to be able to say that this is our norm. Today, he and his wife live down the street from me. We do all our parent-teacher interviews together. We sit beside each other at every conference. I have her stepmom on speed dial because I talk to her 3 or 4 days a week, making sure that we're all on the same page about the way that this little girl is being raised and that we're providing the very best life that we can for her. We like to get together a little bit early now so that we can all fawn over her and swap stories about all the fun and proud things that she did throughout the week. And also so we can give her a little ribbing because she likes a good joke. And now, her story means that she has 2 dads, 2 moms, 6 grandparents, 1 dog, and 2 picket fences. And I couldn't be prouder of the way that it looks. So the question is, why am I standing up here telling you about it? And that answer is twofold. The first is kind of selfish. It's cathartic for me. The more that I tell this story and the more vocal that I am about it, the less power that situation and those labels have over me. The second part is that if I can share this hugely vulnerable and challenging part of my life, recognizing that this is my story and my challenge, but that we are all facing challenges of our own. And you can take something away from it, some little part, and then I get to be a part of your story, as much as you guys have become a part of mine tonight in allowing me to be vulnerable to you today. There's a lot of people in this room that know me. Some of you don't. Some of you know me professionally. Some of you know me personally. But this is the first time that I've stood up and told this story in its complete entirety, like I have today. So I have to say thank you, everybody, so much for being a part of my healing process. Thank you.